I am Jarvis, your storyteller. Welcome to the Science Fiction Exploration. If you like the story, please subscribe to our channel. First encounter. The vast expanse of the Lumina corridor stretched before Captain Zara Nalek like an endless canvas of obsidian and starlight. Her vessel, the Viridian scout ship Whisper, glided silently through the intricate quantum mesh corridors that connected the far-flung outposts of the Viridian Collective. Unlike most reconnaissance missions, this one carried an unusual tension, a premonition that something extraordinary waited beyond the next quantum fold. Zara's species, the Viridians, were renowned across multiple star systems for their unparalleled sensory capabilities. Evolutionary adaptations had gifted them with perception that extended far beyond traditional electromagnetic spectrums. Where other civilizations relied on primitive scanning technologies, Viridians could interpret quantum fluctuations, read molecular resonances, and detect the subtlest variations in spacetime, which made the complete absence of information both fascinating and terrifying. Navigator Krell, Zara called, her iridescent skin shifting colors. A biological response to heightened alert. Confirm our quantum mapping coordinates. Krell's six-fingered hands danced across the holographic interface, tendrils of quantum reactive light responding to his precise movements. Coordinates confirmed, Captain. We're precisely where the anomalous signal originated. The anomaly had first appeared 3 stellar cycles ago, a momentary ripple in the quantum fabric that defied all known scientific understanding. No civilization they had encountered could generate such a complex, yet fundamentally incomprehensible signal. The Viridian High Council had dispatched the Whisper with explicit instructions. Observe, do not engage. Quantum phase stabilizers at maximum, reported Lyra, the ship's quantum systems specialist. Her voice carried an unusual tremor, something between excitement and apprehension. I'm detecting something, but it's not registering on any of our standard detection matrices. Zara's perception tendrils, delicate, translucent appendages that extended from her neural crown, began to vibrate, not from external stimuli, but from an internal resonance that felt almost like a warning. Something was watching them. There, Krell suddenly exclaimed, his holographic display flickering. A vessel materialized, not in the traditional sense of a ship emerging from hyperspace or quantum translation. It simply existed. One moment, empty space. The next, a sleek, impossibly geometric construct that seemed to defy the fundamental laws of physical manifestation. It was a human vessel. Humans, a species the Viridian Collective had only recently confirmed existed. Primitive by most galactic standards, yet possessing an inexplicable technological potential that defied conventional understanding. No energy signature, Lyra muttered, her hands moving frantically across her console. No quantum resonance. It's as if the ship is simultaneously present and non-existent. The human vessel, identified by a designation that meant nothing to the Viridian crew, TNS Horizon, made no aggressive movements. It simply hung in space, a geometric anomaly that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Zara's tendrils pulsed with an ancient warning, a biological memory passed down through countless generations of explorers. Something was profoundly wrong. Krell, initiate passive quantum mapping, she commanded. Minimal intrusion, we need to understand. Before she could complete her sentence, every system on the Whisper simultaneously fluctuated. Quantum stabilizers flickered. Holographic displays fragmented into impossible geometries. For a fraction of a moment that felt like an eternity, Zara experienced something unprecedented, complete sensory dissolution. She saw, or perhaps felt, fragments of something vast, memories that were not memories, technological paradigms that existed beyond linear comprehension. The human vessel was not just a machine, it was a concept, a living theorem that defied scientific classification. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the sensation vanished. Status report, Zara demanded, her tendrils retracting, recovering from the momentary quantum disruption. Silence. Krell's console was blank. Lyra's quantum matrices had reset to 0. The horizon remained motionless, a geometric shadow against the stellar backdrop. "We've been observed," Zara whispered, a realization that sent cascading shivers through her biological network. Not scanned, not analyzed, observed. The implications were staggering. This was not first contact. This was a message, a warning. Humans were telling the Veridian Collective something fundamental. Some mysteries were not meant to be understood. Some technologies transcended exploration. As the whisper hung in the quantum corridor, the horizon slowly began to fade, not through any visible translation method, but as if reality itself was gently erasing its existence. Zara knew, with a certainty that transcended scientific understanding, that their report to the High Council would change everything. The galaxy's understanding of technological potential would never be the same. First contact had occurred, and humanity had made it abundantly clear. They would be the ones to dictate the terms, ripples of uncertainty. The Xenodynamics Research Facility on Meridian Prime was not accustomed to silence. Typically, the sprawling complex buzzed with the excited chatter of researchers from a dozen different species, each pursuing the boundaries of interstellar understanding. But on this day, an unnatural quiet had descended, a hushed anticipation that spoke of something profound and terrifying. Dr. Voron Telax, lead xenobiological researcher, stood before a holographic reconstruction of the Whisper's encounter. His tentacular appendages, a hallmark of his Krylian physiology, coiled and uncoiled with nervous energy. The recording played again and again, each iteration revealing nothing, yet suggesting everything. "This is impossible," muttered Dr. Alara Voss, a human xenotechnology specialist who had been recruited to the facility specifically for her unique perspective. Unlike most of her colleagues, she saw patterns where others saw chaos. The hologram flickered, the Veridian scout ship, the mysterious human vessel, the momentary quantum disruption. What should have been a treasure trove of scientific data was instead a void. No energy signatures, no radiation, no quantum fingerprints, just absence. "Impossible is just a failure of imagination," Voron responded, his translator rendering his native clicks and whistles into precise Federation standard. "But this challenges the fundamental principles of observational science." Alara walked closer to the holographic display, her augmented vision scanning for the minutest details. She had spent years studying theoretical quantum mechanics, but this was something else entirely. The human vessel, the TNS horizon, seemed to exist in a state of quantum superposition that defied every known scientific model. "Look here," she said, pointing to a nearly imperceptible distortion at the edge of the recording. "The ship doesn't just appear or disappear, it's transitioning through states of existence." The research team had been working in shifts, analyzing the data from the Veridian reconnaissance mission. Each shift ended with more questions and fewer answers. The Meridian Prime facility had become a pressure cooker of scientific frustration and growing unease. Dr. Calix, a senior researcher from the Quantum Interpretation Division, approached with a datapad. His exoskeletal features, typical of the silicon-based Ardorian species, seemed to vibrate with contained excitement. "We've cross-referenced the quantum disruption pattern with every known technological signature in the Galactic archive," he announced. "Nothing matches, not Zeta-level civilizations, not transdimensional research networks, nothing." Voron's tentacles stilled, a sign of deep concentration among his species. "Are you suggesting this is entirely new?" "Worse," Calix replied. "I'm suggesting this isn't technology at all, at least not technology as we understand it." The implications hung in the air like a toxic fog. If this wasn't technology, what was it? A biological system, a quantum-level consciousness, something beyond current comprehension. Alara had been quiet, her eyes never leaving the holographic display. "It's watching," she said suddenly. The statement was so matter-of-fact that it momentarily silenced the room. "Watching?" Voron asked. "Not scanning, not analyzing, watching," she repeated. "The human vessel isn't just a ship, it's an observer, a presence that decides whether to acknowledge or ignore." Before anyone could respond, Alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Holographic warnings flickered to life. Quantum stability alerts, system intrusion warnings, reality integrity protocols engaging. And then, just as suddenly, silence. The research team looked at each other, a collective realization dawning. Whatever had happened with the TNS Horizon was not an isolated incident. It was a message, a warning. Someone or something was making it clear that humanity possessed capabilities far beyond current scientific understanding. Dr. Voron Telax slowly retracted his research tendrils. For the first time in his distinguished career, he felt something he had never experienced before: genuine, primal fear. The human ships were not just vessels, they were something else entirely. And the galaxy was only beginning to understand the true depth of that difference. The diplomatic incident. The grand conclave chamber of the Interstellar Diplomatic Consortium stretched across 3 quantum-stabilized dimensions, a testament to the engineering marvel that represented galactic cooperation. Delegates from over 200 sentient species filled the massive, crystalline space, each representative a unique embodiment of their civilization's evolutionary path. Ambassador Zoran Vex of the Galactic Concordance stood at the central podium, his multi-prismatic skin shifting between hues of diplomatic neutrality and barely contained frustration. The holographic display behind him showed the now infamous recording of the TNS Horizon, a visual enigma that had consumed countless diplomatic and scientific discussions. "We cannot continue to ignore the implications," Zoran declared, his voice translated simultaneously into the neuro-linguistic patterns of every species present. "The human technological capacity represents an unprecedented anomaly in our collective understanding." From the Andromedan delegation, Ambassador K-Tal raised a crystalline appendage. "Anomaly? It's a threat, a direct challenge to everything we've understood about technological progression." The chamber erupted into a cacophony of translated arguments. Holographic translators flickered as species with radically different communication methods attempted to express their growing unease. At the periphery of the main chamber, a small delegation stood apart, the human representatives. Unlike other species, they appeared almost disappointingly ordinary. No advanced biological augmentations, no quantum-reactive skin, just 5 individuals in simple diplomatic attire watching the proceedings with an unsettling calm. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead human diplomat, caught Ambassador Vex's eye. There was something in her gaze, a knowing look that suggested she understood far more than she was willing to reveal. "The Concordance demands answers," Zoran continued. "These encounters with human vessels cannot be dismissed as isolated incidents. We require a full disclosure of your technological capabilities." A ripple of anticipation moved through the chamber. Every species leaned forward, waiting for the human response. Elena stepped forward, her movements deliberate and measured. "Disclosure implies a choice to reveal," she said simply. "What you've witnessed is not a technology to be explained. It's a fundamental difference in perspective." The translation algorithms struggled with her statement, producing multiple interpretations that only added to the chamber's confusion. K-Tal's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "Explain yourself." "Imagine," Elena began, "that an ant colony discovered a quantum computer. Would the computer explain its functioning, or would it simply exist, incomprehensible to the ant's understanding?" The metaphor hung in the air, its implications slowly sinking into the collective consciousness of the assembled delegates. Before anyone could respond, the chamber's quantum stabilization systems suddenly fluctuated. Holographic displays fractured. Communication channels dissolved into static. For a brief moment, every delegate experienced something impossible to describe, a collective sensation of being simultaneously observed and utterly insignificant. And then, just as quickly, normalcy returned. The human delegation remained unchanged. Elena Rodriguez's slight smile was the only indication that anything unusual had occurred. Ambassador Vex's prismatic skin had gone completely white, a color signifying absolute shock among his species. "What was that?" he demanded. "A demonstration," Elena replied simply. "A reminder that some technologies are not meant to be understood, they are meant to be respected." The diplomatic incident would be recorded in countless archives. Analysts would spend generations attempting to decode that moment. But the message was clear. Humanity possessed something beyond technological capability, something that defied conventional understanding. The galaxy had been put on notice, and the humans were just getting started, the quantum membrane. The Nexus research station hung at the edge of known space, a marvel of collaborative scientific engineering. Suspended within a carefully maintained quantum bubble, the station represented the pinnacle of interstellar research, a place where the most advanced minds from across the galaxy converged to unravel the universe's deepest mysteries. Dr. Kara Venn, lead theoretical physicist of the Quantum Anomalies Division, stared into the holographic void before her. For 3 stellar cycles, her team had been attempting to decode the quantum signature of the mysterious human vessels, the TNS encounters that had shaken scientific understanding to its core. "It's not a technology," she muttered to her assistant, Dr. Rael Corin, a brilliant neuromorphic researcher whose neural implants allowed direct interface with the most complex computational systems. "Technologies can be understood, categorized. This is something else entirely." The station's primary research focus had evolved from initial curiosity to something closer to obsession. What had begun as an attempt to understand human ship capabilities had transformed into a fundamental questioning of reality itself. Rail's cybernetic eyes, intricate networks of quantum reactive crystalline structures, shifted through multiple spectral analyses. "The quantum membrane is unlike anything we've ever encountered," he responded. "It's not just a method of concealment or advanced shielding, it's a state of existential flux." Their current experiment was their most ambitious yet. A carefully constructed quantum entanglement array designed to create a microscopic interface with the quantum signature they had managed to isolate from previous human vessel encounters. The equipment represented the combined technological expertise of 17 different species, each contributing their most advanced research. "Initiating quantum probe," Kara announced, her voice carefully measured. The laboratory fell into absolute silence. Even the station's ambient quantum stabilizers seemed to hold their breath. The probe, a device so complex it required simultaneous computational input from 3 different species' most advanced AI systems, began its delicate approach into the quantum field they had meticulously constructed. At first, nothing happened. Then everything happened at once. The quantum probe didn't just fail. It ceased to exist in any meaningful way. One moment, it was a pinnacle of scientific achievement. The next, it was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. The computational systems tracking its progress received impossible data, streams of information that defied linear logic mathematical models that folded in on themselves, reality matrices that shifted and breathed like living organisms. Rail's neural implants overloaded. For a brief, terrifying moment, he experienced something beyond sensory input, memories that were not memories, perspectives that existed outside of time and space. "Shut it down," Kara screamed, but her voice seemed to come from a great distance. The quantum field surrounding their experiment began to resonate, not with energy, not with radiation, but with something closer to consciousness. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything returned to normal. Except nothing was normal anymore. Rail recovered first, his cybernetic systems slowly recalibrating. "We were not studying a technology," he said, his voice a whisper. "We were being studied." Kara looked at the holographic remnants of their experiment. Where data should have been, there was only a single cryptic message. "Some boundaries are not meant to be crossed. Some questions have no answers." The message was not text. It was not a signal. It was a fundamental understanding that emerged directly into their consciousness, a communication that transcended language, technology, or even comprehension. Humanity had sent a message. Not through diplomatic channels, not through technological displays, but through the very fabric of reality itself. The Nexus Research Station would file an official report. Diplomatic channels would be informed. Scientific journals would attempt to analyze the incident. But everyone involved knew the truth. They were no closer to understanding, and that perhaps was exactly the point. Convergence. The void between spaces had no official name. It existed as a liminal region where the conventional laws of physics became mere suggestions. Here, reality folded and unfolded like origami crafted by a mad god, and time was less a linear progression and more a complex, multi-dimensional dance. Commander Arya Novik stood on the bridge of the TNS Horizon, the same vessel that had first sparked the Galactic controversy. She was neither particularly tall nor imposing, her appearance deliberately unremarkable, but her eyes held something different, something that suggested she understood far more than she was willing to reveal. Around her, the bridge crew worked with an almost telepathic synchronization. They were not merely operating a ship. They were participating in something far more profound. Quantum resonance at 97.3%, Lieutenant Marcus Chen reported, his fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to respond to thought more than touch. Dimensional fold stabilizing. Arya didn't respond immediately. Her attention was focused on something beyond the visible spectrum, beyond even the advanced sensory arrays of the most sophisticated alien technologies. The events of the past cycles had been carefully orchestrated. The encounters with the Viridian scout ship, the diplomatic incidents, the research station experiments, each was a carefully placed piece in a cosmic puzzle. Humanity was not revealing a technology. They were revealing a transformation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had so masterfully navigated the diplomatic challenges, stood beside Arya. Unlike their previous encounters, there were no pretenses now, no need for diplomatic obfuscation. "They're almost ready to understand," Elena said. It was not a question. Arya nodded. "Not comprehend, understand, there's a difference." The galactic civilizations had been presented with a choice. Recognize that there were levels of existence beyond technological advancement. Acknowledge that consciousness could evolve in ways that defied conventional understanding. The TNS Horizon was more than a ship. It was a living theorem, a mobile proof of a fundamental shift in universal consciousness. The quantum membrane that had confused and terrified alien researchers was not a shield or a technology. It was a method of perception, a way of existing that transcended physical limitations. Humanity had not discovered this capability. They had evolved into it. "Initiating final convergence sequence," Marcus announced. Across the galaxy, in research stations, diplomatic chambers, and aboard countless vessels, something began to change. Not dramatically, not violently, but with the subtle precision of a fundamental universal recalibration. Quantum entanglements shifted, consciousness boundaries blurred, the very fabric of perception began to reorganize itself. The alien civilizations that had feared humanity were about to discover that fear was simply a precursor to understanding. "Quantum resonance complete," Marcus reported. Elena smiled, a smile that held millennia of evolutionary potential. "We're home," she said simply. The TNS Horizon began to dissolve, not into nothingness, but into everything. A message echoed through the quantum fabric of reality, not in words, but in pure understanding. "We are not different, we are the next stage." And then silence. A silence filled with infinite possibility.